Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the Frontline Changes Report. And we have quite a few frontline changes. There's some more major changes in the Kursk front. So we're going to go into the Kursk front first. So according to the Ukrainian mapping, so let me zoom in here. The Ukrainian mapping continue to assert control along this line all the way to Pokrovsk. So this is interesting because the Ukrainian lines looks something like this. And there is reports of Russians attacking Malaya Luknia and Novaya Sorochina, which is by the Russian Defense Ministry. So there must be something wrong with the front line that the Ukrainians have asserted. But because they continue to assert this despite previous geolocation of Russian forces in these two locations, we are going to put back this into the Ukrainian mapping. The Russian mapping will stay the front line around here. Ukrainian forces so have so-called retaken all these positions for now, at least in the Ukrainian mapping. So this is the front line change around here. However, in their mapping, they also did give up a little bit of land south of Kitrovka, just a little bit. These are just some clarification of the front line. Does not necessarily mean that there is a conquest of the land around here. So, but it does indeed give the Ukrainians some very huge capture, 16.5 square kilometers. So, but that's about it in this area. The distance between this furthest, the two furthest point is 11 kilometers. So this is a pretty big ground that we are talking about. So after this northern flank of the Kursk front, we jump to Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front, according to Ukrainian mapping, the Russian forces have conquered the forest north of Chasivya. This is also known as the Olovo track. The Russian forces have taken positions around here. This comes along with, again, according to Ukrainian mapping, Russian control of this Zobneve or Otoberske micro district. However, based on Russian mapping, is a bit further. It's all around to this point. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. You probably see better. So this actually coincide with the conquest of the rest of Kalinina and the capture of all these forests. So this will allow the Russian forces more tactical flexibility to allow them to attack into other positions, complicating the front line for the Ukrainians. So this is the situation in the Chasivya region at the Bakhmut front. So the distance traveled is around just over 1 kilometers. So after Kalinina, we go to the New York front at the south of Toreks. The Ukrainian mapping have finally given up claims of this entire forest just off Zabalka district of Toreks. Russian forces have taken all of the forest finally, and this comes after a very long time because I thought that this would happen way earlier, at least 1-2 months ago. But now this have happened. The Russians have firm control over the entire forest, which means that the Ukrainian position in this Zabalka district is going to be very, very vulnerable because the Russians could just pincer this area here because Russian forces has already been geolocated here, even though it's just a few infantry. But definitely this is tactically very, very complicated for the Ukrainians. So there's the front line change in this area. The distance traveled is 1.16 kilometers, probably around 1.2 kilometers in terms of the front line change. So after this area at New York front, the next front line change, we jump all the way to let me click again. The Chanske. So the Chanske in this area, in the northwest of Selidove, Russian forces has been geolocated in the north of this tree line, confirming Russian advance off from the expressway or the main road. Whereas in New York, in Kurakhove nearby, so let me move this a bit here so I can cover more stuff. So the Russian forces also have advanced from Kurakhove in the northwesterly direction. This includes part of Petrivka where the Russians have entered into it. Ukrainian mapping have considered most of the entire of the south of Petrivka. The Russian forces have conquered the rest of Petrivka in the south, and also secured control south of Petrivka, where the Russian forces are continuing to close down onto the northern flank of Yurievka. So this is the frontline changes in this sector, the Selidove sector of the Pokrovsk front. So if I move a bit more, you can actually see Pustinka there. Yeah. So that's the current situation in this sector. The Ukrainians are going to probably lose Petrivka very soon because Russian forces is already located here. So yeah, I think that holding Petrivka will no longer be plausible, given the fact that they would be encircled by the Russian forces. So that's the current situation in this sector. We move on from Yurivka, south in the Pushkine region, from Novosilka. Uh, Russian forces geolocated at the end of this tree line, confirming Russian advance west of Novosilka. So this comes in the direction of towards Pushkine. So the Russians advance a little bit here. This area here looks a bit more complicated for the for the Russians, because there's a lot of tree lines very close to one another. So which means that this would be a pretty good defensive area for the Ukrainians to defend against the Russian onslaught. So I think the progress in this area will be much slower. So after Novosilka, the next frontline change is over at Bereski. So this is the Kurakhove sector. Russian forces are fighting in Bereski, where the Russian forces have expanded control, taking a bit of the one more street in the southern part across the railway line. So this is the frontline change, and definitely with this front line merely 200 meters away from the reservoir, this area is now closed for service. The Ukrainians can no longer cross or retreat out from this salient, and so this is basically encirclement already. This is basically an encirclement. The Ukrainian forces at Novosilka has now no place to go. The bridge has been destroyed. Although this is a causeway, it is possible to probably still cross it if they can repair it a bit, or just go across the water a bit. I think they can still cross it, but it would be pretty difficult, I guess, because this area has been destroyed by the missile strike. So let's see how this continue to progress, whether Ukrainians can continue to hold this position. According to Ukrainian mapping, this entire zone here, this entire area here is a gray zone, so which also sometimes may just mean that the Russians have captured it. So let's continue to monitor the situation. And there's one last frontline change over at Rozdone. So the Russian forces continue to do this flanking movement to the north of Velyka Novosilka, attacking towards Rozdone, with the Russian forces expanding control from Yasna Polyana, capturing more grounds around this area towards Rozdone. The distance captured is around 1.8 kilometers. So they are now merely just above 3 kilometers away from Rozdone. So the Russian forces is now advancing very quickly right here in this sector, as per I have predicted likely to happen. So if the Russian forces enter to this area, Velyka Novosilka might be abandoned. I'm just saying. So this is pretty complicated for the Ukrainians. All the way from the Mokryali River is around 10 kilometers. So the Ukrainians still have 10 kilometers of time. So let's see how the Ukrainians will play in this area here. So the total area captured by the Ukrainians, because of the frontline change, is 16.5 square kilometers. For the Russian ones, we need to do some calculation. So it's 0.39 plus 0.95 plus 1.22 plus 4.56 plus 0.0 0.06 plus 2.82. So the total area captured by the Russian forces is 10 square kilometers. Definitely slowed down a lot from the previous few days, where we are talking about like 80 square kilometers, 100 square kilometers, 50 square kilometers. Now we are talking about only 10. So definitely the Russians are slowing down in terms of their capturing, and the Ukrainians probably is doing a little bit better. All the Russians are now in the moment of rotations and planning for the next phase of offensive. So anyway, let's see how this continue to progress. Thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.